This first question is from a parent who has been doing the ridiculously effective parenting training for some time. And the parent says, I've been watching the parenting training for the second time, and I'm having a wonderful time doing it. There is so much that I missed the first time. Now, several things occur to me immediately as I read that. Of course, you missed things the first time. We never learn the depths and the nuances of a new principle the first time we study them. It's impossible. Second, your diligence and persistence in learning how to be a good father are astonishing. The second time through 45 hours of training, I'm impressed. You mean it. You care. Third, you're learning because of your faith. You're trusting that established principles work better than inventing parenting for your child. You're learning so much. Not everybody does. So you continue. My son, David, is obviously so much happier because of what I'm learning. He's more teachable. He's more responsible. Even during the quarantine, he was into a routine of schoolwork from 8:30 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And then he could do the things that he wanted to do. Well, bless your heart. He's learning to govern his own life. He set a schedule up for himself. And you had a big part in that. You've taught him how to live, not just to set up a schedule. And it's succeeding because you've had faith, you've been trusting, you've been loving, you've been teaching, and because he's a good person. You're being a real father. Can't say enough good about that. You continue. However, I feel that I might have relied on consequences too much as a teaching tool. I get the impression that sometimes he's doing the right things to avoid losing his privileges, like his technology or screen time, rather than simply making the happier choice. Well, it's very natural to resort to consequences too soon and too much. And I'm not saying that you're doing that. I'm just saying it's very common to do that. Often it's more productive to simply require him to state the principle involved in a given situation, that he was being loving, that he was being irresponsible, that he was being whatever. Require that he tell you what's going on until you believe that he sincerely understands it. That's what matters. People get stuck on consequences. It's learning the lesson. In fact, sometimes if a child can tell you sincerely, not just a monotone repetition of what you said before, if they can tell you what they're learning, teach you the principle involved, that's way better than a consequence. Sometimes it takes both, them teaching and the consequence. Sometimes it takes the consequence to bring them to the place where they can teach. It's a fluid process. You continue. For example, after deciding to thoroughly clean his bedroom, which took him 7 days, having had a few children, that's not a surprise to me. He's been keeping it tidy now, clean and tidy, for 2 weeks. I've checked on it every day at the same time. The first time that he slipped up and left stuff around on the floor, he lost his screen time for the day. Then we had another conversation about what he needs to learn from being neat, how he needs to learn to be responsible, and how he's happier in an ordered environment instead of chaos. And he didn't slip up again for an entire week. So this is exactly an illustration of what I was talking about. Sometimes it takes consequences, and then the consequence gets the principle in a little bit better, and then they really get the principle, and then they just keep living that way. So very smart on your point. The point is the learning. If he can do that without a consequence, all the better. You say, so for the last 2 weeks, his room has looked great. Yesterday, I popped into his room to return his laundry basket, and I saw that he'd left some clothes on the floor. He wasn't really due for an inspection that day because If you over-inspect a child, goodness sakes, if you say every 5 minutes, I'm going to check your room, well, then they just feel imprisoned. They feel micromanaged. So he wasn't due for an inspection that day because he was at his mother's. But when I went in and saw clothes on the floor, I felt disappointed that he wasn't keeping it tidy for himself. Am I expecting too much? Probably. What matters is the pattern of his behavior, not a particular event. Overall, is he learning responsibility, which is what you're trying to teach him? Yes, he is. So you're succeeding, and so is he. I wouldn't make a big thing out of an exception, especially on a day when he didn't anticipate an inspection. Just relax. We all need to learn from this as parents. First, we love them, really love them fully. Then we teach them with words. We require that they come up with the words more and more. Have them tell you what they've learned or what they need to learn instead of you nagging and repeating the same principles. Then occasionally you use consequences, which is just a form of teaching or something to supplement teaching. If they're fairly consistently doing something well, point it out. Don't just point out the mistakes, point out what they're consistently doing and ask them how it feels to be clean, orderly, prepared, whatever. If there's an exception, when they don't do something, like he leaves his clothes on the floor, don't make a big thing of it. Just, for example, if they didn't do the dishes, just nod your head toward the kitchen, just exactly like I'm doing. I'm modeling for you. That's why we're doing these in video. You just nod toward the kitchen and go, dishes, with that tone, not dishes. No. The kid has established a pattern of doing their job. There's an exception. You just go, dishes, and the kid will roll his eyes and go, yeah, I forgot the dishes, of course. They need to know that their successes are as noticeable to you as their mistakes.